Ever get this feeling, like when you hear Scottish English, that there's more to it than just the accent? Like those rolling R's make you think, okay, there's some serious history behind this.
Right, right.
So today we're diving deep into Scottish English.
Yes.
We're going to uncover its past and all those fascinating linguistic twists and turns. Get ready for some aha moments, too. For example, did you know there's a Scottish vowel length rule?
It's fascinating.
It's way cooler than it sounds, trust me.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how languages can kind of, I guess, straddle the line between two distinct forms. And Scottish English is a great example of this. You've got the original Scots language, but then you've got all these layers of English influence that started to creep in way back in the 16th century.
So paint a picture for us.
Yeah.
What's going on in the 16th century that's really causing these languages to collide?
Well, picture this. The printing press arrives in Scotland for the first time.
Ooh, okay.
And it starts churning out texts like the Geneva Bible in English.
That's a game changer.
Huge game changer, almost like a cultural earthquake,
Yeah.
but linguistically. And it wasn't just religion that shook things up. You've got King James taking the Scottish throne in England in 1603.
Right.
He brings his whole court with him to London.
Of course.
And suddenly Scottish poets and writers, they're catering to an English audience. And that had a huge impact on how Scottish English developed.
It's fascinating to think about how much those historical power dynamics, kings, queens, movements of people, how much that influences language, even the language we hear today.
Absolutely. It's all interconnected. And what's interesting is even after those Acts of Union in 1707, when Scotland and England officially became one, Scotland kept its own institutions, its church, its legal system, its schools. And all of that played a part in keeping certain Scots' words and phrases alive.
So we've got Scots and we've got Scottish English, but it's not as easy as saying, like, these are two separate languages. It's more of a spectrum, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
You're spot on. Think of it as a linguistic continuum. So on one end, you've got, broader Scots, which is what you might hear in casual settings amongst friends.
Right.
And on the other end, you've got Scottish Standard English, which is used in more formal situations.
So people are essentially code switching all the time, depending on the situation.
Precisely, yeah. Like imagine you're catching up with your mates at the pub, right? And then you have to talk to your boss, and you seamlessly switch to a more formal way of speaking.
Right.
It's this fascinating linguistic dance that they do.
Yeah.
But, beyond this linguistic juggling act, it's the vocabulary that really gets me excited.
Ooh, I bet. I bet you've got some good stories about those uniquely Scottish words.
I do. But before I dive into these wee tales, a fun fact for you. Did you know that the word janitor, which is, totally ubiquitous in American English, actually originated from Scottish English?
Get out. No way.
Yeah.
See, this is what I love. I had no idea. It makes you think how many other words have made that jump across the pond, back and forth, and we just use them without even thinking.
All the time.
Yeah.
Constantly happening. Languages, they're always in contact, always borrowing from each other. It's amazing.
It shows how interconnected things really are.
Exactly. But back to those wee tales.
Okay, let's hear them.
Are you ready for Hogmanay?
Wait, Hogmanay? That's what they call New Year's Eve in Scotland, right?
So you've already got some Scottish English in your vocabulary.
There you go.
What about scone?
Scone. Delicious.
Or the infamous haggis?
Haggis. Well, let's just say I've heard some stories.
Exactly.
Maybe some myths, some legends.
It's those unique terms, right?
Yeah.
They add so much color and character to a language. But don't think Scottish English is all charming and quaint. Have you ever been called a numpty?
A numpty. Now, that one's new to me.
Numpty basically means, well, someone a bit silly.
Oh, dear.
Bit of a fool.
Oh, dear. I might have to work that into my vocabulary. I'll try and use it responsibly, of course.
Wise choice. Speaking of vocabulary, Scottish English has this soft spot for adorable diminutives, all thanks to that charming IE at the end of words.
Oh, the IE is the best. It's just instant cuteness overload. Laddie, lassie, I love it.
It's endearing, isn't it?
It is.
But it also hints at a deeper connection, that IE is directly connected to the preservation of Scots within Scottish English, like a little reminder of how intertwined these two languages really are.
Okay, I am fully charmed at this point, but before we get too lost in a sea of adorable IEs, let's talk about grammar. Because I hear Scottish English likes to, how should I put this? It bends the rules a little bit.
It does. And it can be quite a fascinating puzzle to unravel. Take apia verbs, for instance.
Okay.
Scottish English seems to have a particular fondness for them.
Oh, so they use them even more than we do.
Instead of saying, my hair needs washing, you might hear someone say, my hair is needing washed.
Is needing washed. Okay,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
throws you for a loop at first, but there's something kind of, I don't know, homey about it. It's got a rhythm to it.
It does, doesn't it? And then there's this curious construction. Be plus after plus ing. As in, he is after going.
He is after going. Now, that one is fascinating to me. Is that a common one?
It might sound strange to us,
It does.
but it actually reflects similar grammatical structures that you find in other languages.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a great example of how diverse grammatical approaches can be.
I love it. I love
That's
it.
true. Grammar can be like a puzzle sometimes. But of course, we can't talk about Scottish English without, well,
Without mentioning the accent.
exactly.
All right, let's talk about it. I mean, let's be real. When most people think Scottish English, the accent is the first thing that pops into their head.
It's definitely a giveaway.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to it than just a rolled R. It's much more nuanced and interesting than that.
Oh, I'm sure it is. So beyond the rolling RS, what else is going on with this accent that makes it so special?
Well, for starters, Scottish English is what we call rhotic.
Erotic.
Okay. Basically, that means the R sound is pronounced in all positions. Unlike some other English accents, where the R might disappear or become softer, depending on the word.
Can you give me an example? For those of us who aren't, linguistics experts.
Sure. Remember when we talked about fern, fur, and fur earlier?
Yes.
Those are good examples. Those three words show how Scottish English has kept those distinct vowel sounds that other types of English have kind of merged together over time, largely because of how that R affects how the vowels are pronounced.
Ah, that makes sense. It's not just pronouncing the R, it's how the R is, influencing the sounds around it.
Exactly, yeah. And then you've got the Scottish vowel length rule.
Okay.
This rule is fascinating because it determines how long a vowel sound should be, depending on what consonants are around it.
Okay, that already sounds more interesting than any grammar rule I ever learned in school, but what does that sound like, actually?
It's subtle, but it makes a difference. For example, take the word cat.
Okay, cat.
In Scottish English, that A sound is going to be shorter than the A in a word like father.
Oh, I see.
It's those small changes in vowel length that give Scottish English its unique rhythm and flow.
I'm starting to hear it in my head now. So I'm guessing this vowel length rule has a lot to do with why Scottish accents are often described as very musical.
Absolutely. That musicality, the rise and fall of the tone, it's a real hallmark of Scottish English, and it's just one of the many things that make it so captivating.
Do we have any examples in our sources, like audio clips, that really showcase those pronunciations?
We do. Let's take a listen to a couple of clips that highlight these unique sounds.
Okay.
You'll hear the rhotic R in action and even get a feel for that vowel length rule we were talking about.
Perfect.
Listen closely.
Okay.
It's subtle, but it's there.
Which way should we go to Lochwinnoch? One way is 7 miles, the other isn't quite so far, but I don't want to take the car on that bad road again.
Wow! Even in those short clips, you can hear how the rhythm and the musicality of Scottish English really shine through. I mean, it's like its own type of music.
You got it. It's that musicality, the way the words flow together, that really sets Scottish English apart. It's about understanding the rhythm of the language as much as the words themselves.
After this deep dive, I'm a little blown away by the complexity of Scottish English. It's so much more than just a charming accent, which it is, but it's like a whole linguistic world of its own.
It really is. And it speaks to how resilient language and culture are, how they adapt and change over time, but still keep their own unique identity. Which brings us to a really interesting question.
Makes you think, yeah, centuries, right, of interacting with English, but Scottish English, it's really held on to its own thing.
It has. And it shows you how tough a culture can be. It makes you wonder about what makes languages change, over time. What helps them keep those little differences?
It's like we always say, language isn't just about talking to each other, right?
Yeah.
It's way more than that. It's a reflection, a living one of a culture's history, who they are, their heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And like anything alive, it needs care, needs attention. For it to really be healthy, to thrive, makes you think, how do we keep all this amazing language variety going? Especially now, when the world's getting smaller and smaller.
Big questions, but good ones. Honestly, I feel like we just dipped our toes in with Scottish English. I had no idea how much depth it had.
And for those wanting to learn more, The Linguistic Survey of Scotland, their work is amazing.
Oh, cool.
It gives you this incredible look at how language, how dialects have changed over time all across Scotland.
I love it. See, and that's the thing. This is just the start. We give you a little taste, right, of Scottish English, but there's a whole world out there, linguistically speaking.
Yeah.
Tons to discover. So keep listening, stay curious, and who knows what other cool language stuff you'll find. Until next time.